Hey everyone, got an exciting show for you today. We are going to talk about the importance of building your team. If you know anything about my story, for me, it was property manager, it was out of area, but a lot of folks that follow me want to go out of state. They want to leverage boots on the ground. And as you know, we speak with Hemlane every other week, and those are going to be the topics we talk about today. So let's bring Dana to the show. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Absolutely. I love the three topics we chose today. So the first one is the importance of building your team. And again, let's think out of state. Let's first talk about the investor, what they should be thinking about, and then we'll talk about how Hemlane kind of helps them do that. So as an investor who is maybe thinking about investing or already has invested out of state, what would be your advice for them to think about as they're building that team or boots on the ground?
Yeah. So the first thing I would mention is exactly, Michael, what you've said about out of state investing. Find your market first and don't be too dispersed. Don't diversify over too many different locations at first. That way you can really build a strong team.
Yeah.
The second, which is what I'm going to.
One thing, I just want to
Yeah.
hit that one more time, because what people need to hear from this is I'm not opposed to investing in lots of different markets or diversification or, whatever you want to call that. But when you're starting out, it is very easy to find deals in 5 markets, but you can't find and build 5 teams at the same time. Different price points, different quality, different local issues, different. If you do that, you're probably going to be guaranteed that one of those teams or 2 of those teams are going to rip you off, and that will just kill your cash flow. So focus in the beginning and consolidate, get economies of scale, get a network that builds on itself, and you'll be a lot happier, in my opinion. But go ahead, Dana.
Great. So that's point number one. Number two is what I'm going to focus on today, which is really making sure you're building your service professional team. So your vendors, your handyman, your electrician, your plumber. And that can go a long way because there's a couple of repair bills that if you get charged double, right, that's going to really ruin your cash flow. So let's start with, what you should look for. The first thing is you should look for people who are licensed, insured, and bonded. It is more difficult to find bonding. I will let you know, some of them don't even know what that is, than it is for licensed and insured. The only person who should not be licensed is your handyman. The difference between a handyman and a general contractor, another trade, is that they aren't licensed, but your handyman should be insured. Now, we have real estate investors who come to us and say, great, I've got Joe Smo as my handyman. We really like him, and we want to use him because he's the cheapest in the area. That's great if you want to take on that risk, but they aren't insured. So if anything goes wrong, that becomes your risk. So just so investors know, a lot of times they say, well, what's the difference between that handyman's rate and that handyman's rate? A lot of times it has to do with that insurance. Who is insured and more professional than those who aren't? And whether or not you want to take that risk is something that you can determine yourselves. Most real estate investors we see help their handymen get insurance, even per job, something like that, just to make sure they are covered when they need to be. The second thing that I would bring up is when you go through and you vet service professionals, you want to ask them all the same questions. How much does it cost for you to replace a garbage disposal? That will help you kind of gauge between companies, how much does it cost? How much is your service call rate? Is that applied to the work, or do I have to pay extra for the additional work? Some companies don't have service call rates, but always they seem to have much higher prices than other companies, right? And so really understanding and engaging that will help. One thing I have noticed is smaller, like mom and pop plumbers, electricians, like companies, right, that are licensed and insured, where it's actually the person who's licensed going out and doing every job. A lot of times you have a lot lower risk with that because they're not cycling through a ton of service professionals. They've been doing this for 25 years and they really know their stuff. And that's great, right? So a lot of times I say bigger is not always better, right? You want the person who has that licensing and insurance themselves going out to do the work. So those are some initial tidbits of advice. Usually when we get questions of, why is this person more expensive than this person? A lot of it has to do with the licensing and insurance. And then of course with locations, it varies quite a bit as well, Michael.
Yeah. So that's wonderful. Again, if what we're looking at here is you're an investor, you're buying out of state, you're essentially acting as quote unquote the property manager, or at least that's how I would look at this. And what you could help them facilitate with is you very likely bring, I don't know, a Rolodex of providers that you've already qualified, and you give them the flexibility to add their team if they, again, right, if they want to use Joe Schmo, they can do that. So a lot of flexibility there. Why don't you talk about some of the checks and balances you do before you add a provider in a certain location, just so people understand what Himlane brings to the table?
Yeah, so from our perspective, when we do service professional vetting, a lot of it is through partners. We are looking at insurance, we are looking at licensing. We're also looking at who's going out to do the job. Are they sending out, if they're sending people out, are those people also licensed? All of that factors into it. We also work with partners. So some partners, like an example is Ace Handyman Services. They are a partner of ours, and that is with the Ace brand. If something goes wrong, we call the CEO, Andy Bell, and tell him, hey, Andy, something went wrong. And he makes sure that doesn't happen. He makes sure they're right back out there. And I think that has to do with a lot of the brand. We were really impressed with the brand, but making sure that there is that level of quality with the work. And then the other thing is always optionality, to your point. A lot of times when we're sourcing service professionals, we're also asking the local community, the local leasing agents, the local realtors we work with, who are the best people in this area? And can we go ahead and send those folks out? And then we also are vetting them, but we're already getting a pre-vetted list from local experts in the community. And that's really important. And then optionality. Sometimes investors will bring their own service professionals, and we found these people are great to work with. So from that point, having that optionality and choice is huge, but also having local boots on the ground who worked with these people in the past and have a track record is huge as well.
I love this. This is an important topic for anybody that's investing out of state, really wanting to do quote unquote, almost become the local property manager for your portfolio. You need to watch the boots on the ground. That is your risk factor. That's where money could escape. That's where risk could increase. And I think Himlane not only allows you to have better control of your people, right? If you bring Joe Schmo, but if you want comparisons, you want quality, you can really leverage Himlane to do that. So any closing comments for episode 1?
I don't think so. I think that covers it.
Very cool. And everybody remember 20% off if you let Himlane know that you are coming from one rental at a time. They do have a 30-day free trial. Check them out, see what's there. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks, Dana.